I'm using a throwaway because not even my wife believes this story. She thinks I used it to insult her intelligence. I swear on the stack of my grandmother's graves, it's true. When I was 19, I owned a car. I haven't driven since because I never want to go through that ordeal ever again. I was driving at night, trying to get home from a friend's place. My friend lived out in the country, so I had to take backcountry roads home. I was never a proficient night driver, so when I got lost, I wasn't surprised. I tried bringing up Google Maps, but I didn't have my 3G coverage out there. I decided I was probably going in the wrong direction, just a gut feeling. So I got out of the car to look around. At the time, it was May, but when I got out, it was cold as shit. The weather had been mild all that week. Even at night, it was brisk at the worst. The second I stepped out of the car, though, I knew everything was wrong. Not only was it unimaginably cold for that time of year, but the woods below the hill my car was on was gone. It had been there just moments before I stepped out. But now, there were 4 large houses where the patch of trees had been. The houses, though, didn't look like the houses I was used to seeing in the area. They had domed roofs with a skylight in the middle and what looked like elongated entryways at the front, kind of like your classic igloo. I started to panic and called my dad, but the call went nowhere. I had forgotten that I lost coverage. Then I heard a voice below me. I looked down at the houses, and a small floodlight had been turned on in one of the front lawns of the houses. This guy was standing outside with a dog. He was talking to the dog in this language I had never heard before. I'm no linguist, and I couldn't hear him very well, but I swear it sounded practically alien. Lots of elongated vowels and chirping, for lack of a better word. I was dumbfounded, freaking out. At that point, I was considering throwing myself off that hill, hoping to hit my head and wake up back in my car. I was fully awake though, freezing and panicked. I rushed back into my car and drove for another few minutes before passing by another car. That car, though, was totally not the kind of car we see today. There was a weird symbol on the windshield and lights accenting the chassis. It had no outboard mirrors and didn't make a normal sound as it passed by. I can't even describe the sound it made. Not a whoosh like normal cars. It was almost like a slithering. I think the driver noticed that my car was super different too, because as I instinctively slowed down to get a better look, so did the strange car. That was it for me. I stopped at the side of the road a few seconds after it had passed and took a lot of deep breaths. I turned my car off and sat for a long time, but eventually worked up the nerve to get out of the car again. This time, it was barely cool out, and I could recognize my surroundings. I was a 20-minute drive away from home. I walked down the road a ways, around a bend and up another small hill, and could see a familiar billboard out in the distance. The problem was that I was way too afraid that if I got back in my car, things would change again. So I was determined to stay outside. I thought, just to be safe, I'll open the car door and grab the flashlight I keep in the driver's side door compartment. I walked back down the hill, around the bend, and no car. It occurred to me that after I shut the car door, I hadn't looked back at all, so maybe I'd just forgotten its position. I kept walking back, but no car. I checked my phone, and it had been hours now since I left, and my parents were surely in bed asleep. So I called my friend, and he picked me up on the road. I told him some made-up story about how the car had died on the roads going through the woods on a different, longer route back to my house. I was getting scared in the woods, so I decided to hoof it home, gave up by the time my folks had gone to bed, so I had to call him. He laughed at my misfortune and apparent stupidity and said he'd help me look for the car the next day. I led my dad and him on a wild goose chase for that car for the majority of the next day, before my dad gave up and said it must have been stolen and reported it. To this day, the car hasn't been found, because as far as I know, it's on the side of the road in what I firmly believe to be an alternate dimension, a parallel universe, or what have you. The truth is, I have no idea how this sounds. I've only told my wife what happened, and she thought I was messing with her. And then, after I insisted I wasn't, she thought I was insulting her intelligence. To smooth things over, I gave in and told her it was just a prank or whatever, and she forgot about it. I'm sorry if this sounds too contrived. I just wanted to give the best account of what happened. Much love. I didn't used to believe in anything like this, at least not before that night. It started pretty normal. I'd been out late, just driving around to clear my head. I live in a pretty quiet area, so once you get a little outside town, it's mostly just empty roads and stretches of forest. I remember it being unusually dark that night. No moon, barely any streetlights, just my headlights and the road ahead of me. At some point I pulled over. There's this small gravel turnout I've stopped at before. Nothing special, just a place to sit down for a minute and breathe. I turned off the engine and everything went completely silent. You don't really notice how loud a car is until it's off. Suddenly it was just nothing. No wind, no distant traffic, no insects. That's when I felt it, that feeling you get when you're not alone. I remember sitting there, staring out through the windshield, trying to tell myself it was nothing, just my imagination. But something felt off, like the air itself had changed. Then I saw movement. At first I thought it was an animal, something low to the ground, just at the edge where my headlights reached. But it didn't move like an animal. It was too controlled, too slow. I leaned forward slightly, trying to focus on it, and that's when it stood up. Not all the way, but enough that I could tell this wasn't a deer. This wasn't anything I recognized. It was thin, way too thin, and the way it moved, it didn't look natural. I froze. I didn't even realize I'd stopped breathing. Then it turned its head toward me. I couldn't see details, just a shape, but I knew it was looking directly at me. That was enough. I started the car immediately. Didn't even think, just instinct. Engine on, light steady, foot on the gas. As I pulled away, I checked the rearview mirror. It was still there, standing in the road now, watching. The whole drive home, I felt wrong, like I'd brought something with me. I kept checking my mirrors every few seconds. Nothing there, but the feeling wouldn't go away. When I finally got home, I parked quickly and went inside, locked the door, checked the windows. Everything was normal, for a while. Maybe 20 minutes later, I heard something outside. A soft sound, like something brushing against the side of the house. I told myself it was just the wind, but there was no wind. Then it happened again, closer this time. I moved toward the window slowly, didn't turn on the lights, didn't want whatever was outside to see me. I pulled the curtain back just a little. At first, I didn't see anything, just darkness. Then something moved, fast, too fast to track properly, but I caught a glimpse of it, that same shape, tall, thin, wrong, right outside my house. I stepped back immediately, heart racing, trying to think, trying to understand what I'd just seen. I didn't sleep that night. And the worst part is, I never saw it again, but sometimes, when it's quiet, too quiet, I still get that same feeling, like something's out there, watching. Hello everyone, I'm a long-time lurker of this sub, first-time poster. The story I'm about to share is 100% truth and really happened to me about 15 years ago. Believe it or not, but to this day I cannot explain it. I changed the names to remain anonymous. When I was 15, my family moved into a rental house. There was always a weird energy about that house. I can't explain it, but something was always eerie about it. It was a beautiful old home, and an elderly widow had lived in it before us. She had been an opera singer and college professor in the arts. Her name was Mrs. Martins, and she became kind of a character in the house that we'd reference often, as her children rented us the home with literally all of her belongings still in it. They didn't even clean out the fridge. It was very strange. The house was basically left like the day she passed away. Oh, and the attic was infested with bats. No clue if that's relevant, but it contributed to the spooky factor that was always felt in the house. I never liked staying by myself there, even during the daytime. On the night of the incident, I was home with my best friend Mallory, also 15, her younger sister Olive, 13, and my sister Emma, 11. Mallory and I were in the living room watching a movie, and Olive and Emma were hanging out in the den, which was a room off the living room with a door, and they were watching TV. No parents were at home at the time. At one point, my sister Emma decided to go upstairs and take a shower. The way the house was set up, there was only one staircase, and you had to walk through the living room to use it. So she came out of the den, walked through the living room, went up, showered, and was up there for maybe half an hour. When she was done, she walked down the stairs in a white towel, stopped on the 6th step, and went, "Hey guys," with a little wave, to which we acknowledged her cheerfully. And then she kept walking down the stairs, through the living room, by Mallory and I watching TV, and opened the door into the den and closed it behind her. My mom had been folding clothes down in the den earlier, which is why she came downstairs to get dressed. Maybe 2 to 5 minutes later, Mallory and I, still sitting in the living room, and Olive and we assume Emma are watching TV in the den, when we hear from over our shoulder, "Hey guys," in the same inflection and tone as before. And it's my sister Emma, in a white towel, who had walked down the stairs, was stopped at the 6th step, and had her hand up in a small wave, and then went to keep walking down when Mallory and I both gasped, turned and looked into each other's faces with absolute horror. It happened so quickly, but we both bolted upright, ran into the den, burst open the door to a startled Olive. Emma was trailing close behind with a "what's going on?" When I opened that door, I truly expected to see another version of my sister sitting in there, but no, it was just Olive. Mallory and I immediately began questioning them. "Emma, didn't you just walk down here a couple of minutes ago?" "Olive, are you sure Emma didn't come into the den just a few minutes ago?" "Emma, did you go downstairs after the shower, but then go back up somehow?" But we knew there was no way she could have come back upstairs without walking by us in the living room. It made no sense. Both girls were so confused and beginning to get scared. They truly had no idea what we were talking about. Emma swore she had only come downstairs that one time, and Olive swore she had never walked into the den in a towel before we all came in together just then. Because our sisters were so young at the time, and we could tell they were getting spooked, we decided to just pretend we were kidding and left them to go back to the living room. I remember sitting in silence and maybe even asking, "You saw that too, right?" And then we never spoke of it again. I honestly didn't even tell my parents or my sister what had happened until a couple of years ago. My sister said she has no memory of it at all. I haven't spoken to Mallory since high school, so I have no idea if she remembers it. All I know is, if Mallory hadn't been there to witness it and have the same reaction I did in that moment, before either of us even spoke a word, I probably would have thought I was losing my mind. I'll never forget the look of horror and confusion she gave me, and I probably gave right back to her when Emma came down the stairs that second time. To this day, it still creeps me out to think about it. In the years since, I've read many stories about glitches in the Matrix and seen some about time loops. People witnessing the same event happen twice or more in the same way, usually close together. I believe this is what I and Mallory experienced with my sister that day. We only lived in that house for a year before my parents purchased their own home and we moved. Last year, my sister went back to visit the town and she said she drove by that house. Apparently they had split it into 2 homes to rent it out to the college kids. We both agreed that the strange energy forces that existed in that home were probably not too happy to be split in 2. So that's my glitch in the Matrix story. Like I said, it's all true. Anyone else experience a similar time loop?
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy mysterious and eerie stories like these and want more, consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.